Nitish Kumar has met the governor, submitted his resignation as Chief Minister of Bihar. He is now likely to return to Raj Bhavan along with his new alliance partners, the RJD, perhaps the Congress and others, and stake claim to come back as Chief Minister of now a new Gathbandhan. We are already hearing that Tejashwi Yadav is going to be his Deputy Chief Minister, and of course the question of portfolios, we're being told by both parties, is not going to be a problem. So there's been a big shake-up in Bihar, very swift, Nidhi. It's all happened literally in a matter of 24 hours.
In fact, I believe that Nitish Kumar has also spoken. I'm just trying to find out if there's a soundbite as well, where he's said that I have resigned and I've spoken to my MLAs as well. So Nitish Kumar has confirmed that, and yeah, it's all been pretty swift. He had a 4 o'clock meeting with the governor. He went in at about 3:40, and about 5 minutes ago he was back. So about 10-15 minutes, I would say, with the governor, where he has submitted his resignation. I think the procedure is that the governor would have to ask him to continue to be the caretaker chief minister until a new dispensation is in place, and therefore now we expect Nitish Kumar to go back to stake claim along with Tejashwi Yadav of the RJD. And Tejashwi Yadav, it is expected, will be the Deputy Chief Minister of Bihar, and therefore that, clearly this is something that they've worked out, Vasu, much before today's developments. I mean, this is obviously something that's been building up for a while, and the two sides wanted to do this with as little friction as possible, though what happens, when you get into the nitty-gritties of other portfolios, we don't know.
Sure.
But at least the big ones seem to be sorted.
That's right. This is still the honeymoon period. So,
yeah,
between honeymoon and subsequent what happens in a relationship, that they will have to figure out as they go along. But at the moment, it's all happened, as we said, very swiftly. Behind the scenes moves by Nitish Kumar, reaching out to all these parties. And Nidhi, as we've been saying all along, the BJP very quiet in all this, not really getting into the mix, not trying super hard to try and prevent this from happening or trying to break some of these parties, or at least we've not seen any visible evidence of it. So that's a big change as well.
Well, I mean, do you know what they're planning? So, I mean,
we
don't know what's coming up.
As we speak.
So we don't know what's happening next. It is unusual for the BJP leadership to be so quiet, but I do suspect that they won't be quiet for long, Vasu. I think eventually when things become clearer about which way, this new political formation is taking shape, what the reasons are for Nitish Kumar to have quit the NDA alliance, I suspect that you will see BJP leaders perhaps come out with full force. It might take a little more time, but I'm sure they're also waiting to see what his public reasons are.
Because Nidhi, remember that there's still 3 years left now for the elections in Bihar. The last election was in 2020. Next election is in 25. We're in 2022. So it's 3 long years for this arrangement to play itself out, and that will give ample time for the BJP to see whether this works or not, and how that's exactly going to hold together. Nitish Kumar may want to try to prepone the elections. He may not want to wait for 3 years, but that may not entirely be in his hands, because
and I think
all the other MLAs have to
I think so far the indications are that he doesn't want to have early elections, and I think his MLAs don't want to have early elections, which is why it's a change of government. But look, Vasu, I mean, as we saw in Maharashtra, the BJP doesn't take too kindly to being stabbed in the back, and they will see this as a backstabbing. And so even in Maharashtra, it took this much time. Maybe COVID came in the way, but we saw what happened there. So 3 years, like you said, is a long time, in politics.
No, absolutely. And again, we were talking about this earlier, that we've not seen that kind of agency threat or pressure, at least on the JDU so far, of the kind that was witnessed in Maharashtra. Of course, the RJD is deeply embroiled in cases, and in fact, Nidhi, that was one of the reasons seen as Tejashwi's willingness to play ball and to go along with this arrangement, where even though he's the single largest party, he will be number 2 in the government. So whether the agencies also now get active in Bihar and how that once again changes the political equations, we'll have to wait and see. But at the moment, it does appear that Nitish Kumar has yet again pulled off a political coup, a bloodless coup, and is on his way to becoming Chief Minister now of the RJD alliance, a return to 2015, a return of that MGB 2.0.
Do you know how many times he's taken oath?
I don't know. I'm waiting for you to tell me.
I'm going to Google it quickly. But maybe
it's a lot. It's a lot.
Alok, what's happening there now? I mean, when are we expecting the actual, meeting with the governor to stake claim now?
I thought you were going to ask me about how many times it's taking oath, and I was wondering अगर जल्दी छुप के यहाँ पे मैं भी Google कर लूँ. But I think it's going to take some time. Maybe, I can't say really how much time it will take, but it does seem that the next step, like we have been discussing, is that he may go back to the governor to take claim, along with Tejashwi Yadav, at least, who was the leader of opposition, but now will be part of the government. How soon or late that happens, it's difficult to say. We were hoping that this meeting that happened between Nitish Kumar and the governor would take place at 12:30, because JDU sources seem to indicate that that was the time that they asked for and was agreed on, but later was shifted to 4. But that meeting has already happened. It happened around 3:35, 3:40, and it went on for about 15 minutes. So logically, the next step has to be perhaps that Nitish Kumar will go back to take claim at some point of time. So we are waiting to see when that happens. As you and I speak, I've moved a little away for the network to be a little more stable, given that a crowd has converged here. But I can see from here that, where Nitish Kumar's residence sits, or where the main gates are, there are some supporters. I won't say there are thousands of them, but I would say that there are a few hundred of JDU supporters who have come here. Some of them were cheering the Chief Minister when he went. The police had put up barricades, but he went, his car went through those barricades, or to one side of those barricades, and to the other side there were these supporters who had JDU flags, and they were cheering the Chief Minister. And when he came out, again you had hundreds of supporters trying to, stop his car. They went in front of the car. He stopped too. And there was the media also trying to get a soundbite out of him. I really can't say if he spoke or not, but I think it's been confirmed that he will resign as the Bihar Chief Minister. He will be the caretaker CM, and then the next move will happen.
Kuntal Krishna, spokesperson Congress Bihar, Zainab Sikandar, columnist and writer. We're hoping also to go across to PDT Acharya, constitutional expert. But let's just first listen in to Nitish Kumar, first reactions.
इस्तीफा दे दिया नीतीश जी आपने आराम से लोकसभा राज्यसभा के सांसद और सारे विधायक भाजपा से क्या दिक्कत हो गई? सारी मीटिंग आज हुई और सब लोगों की इच्छा ये है कि छोड़ दें और आकर के इस्तीफा सौंप बीजेपी से क्या परेशानी थी? नरेंद्र मोदी और
Right, so that was Chief Minister Nitish Kumar. Actually, we didn't get the audio. Those are just the first visuals coming in. But that is where he told the media that he has resigned as Chief Minister and that he's spoken to the MLAs as well about that.
That's right. We'll try and get that clip for you with hopefully a better audio feed, because those are, like Nidhi said, those are the first responses of his after quitting, where he was even asked ki Bhajpa se kya dikkat ho gayi. So it'll be interesting to get his answer. But let's just go across now to our panel once again and just get the first response from the BJP spokesperson, DP Kaushik. DP Kaushik, how big a setback is this for the BJP, having lost power now in a very important Hindi belt state?
Hello.
Yes, DP Kaushik, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. How big of a setback is this for the BJP, losing Bihar?
नहीं, देखिए ऐसा कोई सेटबैक हमारे लिए है नहीं. हमारे पास अकेले लड़ने का विकल्प है. पिछली बार भी हमने देखी एक इतनी बड़ी लार्जेस्ट पार्टी होने के बावजूद, हमारी 77 सीटें होने के बावजूद भी हमने नीतीश कुमार को सीएम बनाना चाहा और बनाया उनको. तो मुझे लगता है कि ये चीफ मिनिस्टर का जो नीतीश कुमार का दोहरा चेहरा जो सामने आता है, क्योंकि आपने पहली बार भी देखा कि ये सरकार 20 महीने पहले चली थी इन दोनों की, उसके बावजूद हमारे साथ शायद 22 महीने हुए इन लोगों को. तो ये देश के लोग जानते हैं, वहाँ बिहार की जनता भी अब की बार इनको सबक सिखाने का काम करेगी. अगर ये मैं चाहता हूँ कि अगर अब अकेले चुनाव लड़कर देखे नीतीश कुमार जी, तो शायद इनको पता लगे क्या क्या प्रदेश की जनता के साथ में कैसा इनको वो आएगा।
लेकिन कौशिक जी, आपको क्या लगता है कि किस वजह से चले गए? वो कुछ बताया आप लोगों को? आपने क्या सुना है, क्यों गए?
नहीं, हमारा को इनसे कोई बात नहीं हुई, ना ही इस तरह कोई बात पहले सामने आई थी। तो ये तो अपना आप इन लोगों ने डिसीजन लिया है, कभी किसी से बात नहीं हुई, बीजेपी किसी बड़े अधिकारी से या बड़ी नेतागण से किसी से बात नहीं हुई। और अब जो ये आरोप जो भी लगाते रहते हैं, मान लो मंत्री जी का लगाया, बिना पूछे मंत्री बनाया, ये सब बातें मुझे लगता है नहीं ठीक नहीं है। तो अपनी तरफ से मनगढ़ंत बातें कर रहे हैं। बीजेपी की तरफ से हमें कोई इस तरह का हिंट नहीं मिला और ना ही हमने कभी इनसे कोशिश की।
Right. Let's just go across to PDT Acharya, who's a constitutional expert, has served in the Lok Sabha as well. PDT Acharya, can you just tell us what is the legal constitutional position here? Nitish Kumar has gone and resigned, and most likely has the governor accepted his resignation, said you continue as caretaker till you come up with the numbers. Is that the sequence? Is that the correct position?
Yes, certainly. Now things are clear, because when the chief minister resigns, the governor will ask him to continue in office as a caretaker chief minister till an alternative arrangement is made. So the first part is over. His resignation is over. I mean, he has given his resignation, and after that, the governor has to explore the possibility of another government being formed. So in that process, when he looks around, now the situation is that Nitish Kumar has the support of many other parties. The main opposition party, which actually outnumbers every other single party. And then the Congress and some other parties, are supporting him. So the number is on his side. So he is in a much stronger position to stake claim for the chief ministership.
But sir, just a quick question: that is there no scope? I mean, that's the way the procedure should be. But if you remember the infamous example from Jammu and Kashmir, where the BJP withdrew support to Mehbooba Mufti, and when an alternative alliance tried to send a letter of support for her to the governor, he said my fax machine wasn't working, and the rest is history. So, is there a potential to circumvent what should be procedure?
Well, in Bihar, as we look at the situation there, the governor can, at best, he can sort of delay the whole process. In the meantime, of course, the governor is not a free agent. He has to act on the instruction from the union government. So all that will happen. If the BJP is quiet till now, but that doesn't mean that they will not act. So we do not know what kind of instruction the governor will receive from the union government and all that. But as we look at the situation as it emerged, I don't think there is any immediate possibility of any other course of action being taken by the governor, except inviting the chief minister.
So you're saying president's rule unlikely?
Yeah, when there is a clear majority on the other side, then there is no possibility of a president's rule being recommended by the governor.
Right. So, moral of the story: don't send a fax. Land up with your MLAs directly, and make sure that the deal is sealed. So, let's just go back once again and play you that we've got better audio-video quality on that Nitish Kumar response, and also news coming in from our colleague Manish that Nitish has gone to the house of Tejashwi Yadav, presumably to then go with him to
live pictures, I think,
to Raj Bhavan. Those are live pictures coming in
from
of
somewhere.
All of that action that's taking place. Let's listen in to Nitish Kumar.
दोनों लोकसभा राज्यसभा के सांसद और सारे विधायक और विधान पार्षद और पार्टी के नेता सब लोगों
भाजपा से क्या दिक्कत हो गई?
सारी मीटिंग आज हुई और सब लोगों की इच्छा यही हुई है कि हम लोगों को एनडीए छोड़ देना चाहिए। तो जैसे ही एनडीए छोड़ने का निर्णय सब लोगों की थी, तो हमने उसी को स्वीकार कर लिया और आकर के यहाँ जो एनडीए की सरकार में हम मुख्यमंत्री थे, हमने मुख्यमंत्री पद से इस्तीफा सौंप दिया, बस यही है।
बीजेपी से क्या परेशानी थी नीतीश?
अब तो बहुत सारी चीजें हुई है हमारे
Okay,
Okay, so
Nitish
first
Kumar-
comments.
Yeah, first comment saying that it was a unanimous decision of everybody, MPs, MLAs, everyone to leave the NDA and quit, and that's why he resigned. But when he was asked why, he said बहुत सारी परेशानियां हैं, बहुत सारी वजह. Didn't get into the specifics of why exactly.
Yeah, not yet at least, but well, at least one break, Vasu, he did come out and speak to the media. We were speculating on whether he would do that. Zainab Sikandar, columnist and analyst, joining us as well. Zainab, what did you make of that comment by the Bihar Chief Minister? And, you know, do you think this new dispensation, old, new, whatever you want to call it, will that survive 3 years?
Hard to tell, but I always... you know, today I came up with something when this news broke out. JDU, the United of JDU should be turned into U-turn, because Nitish Kumar has taken so many U-turns in the past, be it ideologically, be it which party he wants to go with, that it's hard to tell whether he's only going to continue with what he's chosen today or not. But the writing was on the wall. Everyone knew that there's a lot of trouble between JDU and BJP. And I think it all started with, you know, it had started long back, because Nitish Kumar did give out, you know, hints of, you know, not agreeing with BJP completely, you know, be it the one election, one nation. You know, he had openly said that theoretically it sounds good, but, you know, I don't think that practically it is fine. Then even during the Agnipath scheme, you know, he completely distanced himself, and, you know, Upendra Kushwaha and Alan Singh went on to say that the BJP should have a dialogue with all the protesters and rioters. And the majority of the protesting was seen in Bihar, and many had speculated that it was JDU who had sort of endorsed, you know, that kind of protest against the Agnipath scheme. Then Nitish Kumar has skipped 4 meetings of the centre, and the latest one was on Sunday with Niti Aayog. And then, of course, the RCP Singh fiasco. So it was very obvious that things were very bad. In fact, even with the Bihar speaker, Vijay Kumar Sinha, you know, Nitish Kumar and he have had a public spat. They have been at loggerheads. The cabinet expansion in Bihar, for that matter, there were 8 berths that JDU took, and the one vacant one was kept for BJP. Whereas, whatever said and done, BJP had more numbers. So BJP was constantly thinking that Nitish Kumar and JDU are downplaying them in Bihar, as well as not listening to them in Bihar, because, you know, everyone who Amit Shah wanted to put in the cabinet, right, Nitish Kumar was not allowing. So there was just so much tussle between JDU.
Okay.
Too many. It's
right,
a long list. So by the end of it, everybody knew this was going to happen.
This was inevitable. Okay, let's get Let's get Kuntal Krishna, spokesperson Congress Bihar. So Kuntal, is it fair to say that the Congress is also now extending support to Nitish and is going to be part of this caravan of MLAs that will go to Raj Bhavan?
Vasu, we have already extended unconditional support to Mr. Kumar. Yesterday, when our legislatures met, it was decided that if Nitish Kumar is coming out of NDA fold and if he is joining UPA, Congress is going to support him unconditionally.
But how, Kuntal Krishna, explain to us and the public how that works. How is Nitish Kumar unprincipled and willing to flirt with communal forces, etc., when he's with the BJP and he comes out and he has your full support?
See, Nitish Kumar has always been a principled man. And today when he is coming out of NDA, the basic reason
then
for him to come out...
When he goes into NDA, he's unprincipled, and he comes out, he becomes principled.
Vasu, Nitish Kumar, I as a Congress spokesperson, I'm telling you, Congress always had faith in Nitish Kumar. Nitish Kumar was basically a principled man, and now when he's coming out of NDA fold, the basic problem was that this government, this BJP government, is trying to kill democracy in India. That is what they tried in Bihar also. What they did, BJP was simply stabbing their political partners. What happened in last assembly elections, the Chirag episode, then RCP episode. So Nitish Kumar and many other things. Just now Janab told you many things. So there were a lot of differences, and these differences were basically on very basic principle of constitution. So Nitish Kumar has come out and we welcome him. We have already extended our unconditional support to Nitish Kumar.
Right. Sanjay Jha is with us as well. Sanjay, your first thoughts on this. You know, at the end of the day, I think the question is, will this Gathbandhan survive round 2? 3 years is a very long time.
Well, Niti, I do believe that, all the political parties in India, all non-BJP political parties in India have recognized that if they don't do something extraordinarily different, their survival itself is at stake. And I think Nitish was very aware, and, the world saw how brutal and ruthless the BJP can be when it wants to get into power, and Maharashtra was a manifestation of that lust for power. What they have done to Uddhav here in Shiv Sena is quite an extraordinary, I think, narrative in India's political history. So I think, with 45 MLAs, you're always vulnerable. But, there's one point that I need to point out here, that even if you look at the relationship between the JDU and the BJP, please recognize that Nitish, and this is where Kuntal is quite right, that Nitish belonged to the Vajpayee era of coalition with the BJP. During 2013-17, he wasn't with the BJP when Mr. Modi was Prime Minister. I would request you to go and look at what he had to say about the Gujarat riots, what he said about Prime Minister Modi very, very directly. If he made that about turn in 2017, I don't want to go back into history. I even then believed it was a tactical political error, because he was seeing himself becoming politically obsolescent, because despite having a very formidable chief minister's track record, he would have ended up retiring as the chief minister of Bihar. Now, at this moment, and I'm going to throw this up for you to debate with the other panelists, it brings Nitish once again back into the national narrative. The opposition will need a leader. How the Congress performs is critical. Mamta, I do believe, is going to be questioned a lot after not supporting the opposition in the vice presidential elections. I think, at this point of time, Nitish has a case of sorts to say, listen, I may have gone back to the BJP, but I have some governance and administration track record that does make me a viable proposition. So lots of issues up in the air at the moment.
Okay. But, the question really remains for the BJP, that is this, as, some of the panelists were saying, that the BJP is guilty, DP Kaushik, ki BJP apne पार्टनर्स के पीठ पे छुरा मारती है, और कहीं ना कहीं क्या ये आपके लिए बैकफायर हो रहा है?
देखिए, आप एक बात बताइए, 45 सीटों के बावजूद भी अगर इनको मुख्यमंत्री बनाया गया, हम महाराष्ट्र का एग्जाम्पल देखिए, महाराष्ट्र में हमने उनको मुख्यमंत्री बनाया जबकि सीटें हमारी ज्यादा हैं, उसके बावजूद भी अगर ये लोग कहीं बीजेपी छुरा मारती है, तो देश के लोग तो मुझे लगता नहीं कितने पागल होंगे इनके बारे में सोचेंगे। मैं फिर भी कह रहा हूँ, अगर इनको ऐसा लगता है तो ये चुनाव करवा कर देखें बिहार के अंदर, नीतीश जी दोनों पार्टियां करवा कर देखें, वहां पे इनका रिजल्ट पता चल जाएगा। तो ऐसा बीजेपी का कल्चर ही नहीं है जो ये लोग बोल रहे हैं। अगर इन्होंने ये सब बोलना होता तो पहले क्यों नहीं सोचते ये लोग सरकार बनाने से पहले? अगर इनको ऐसा लगता है कि अगर बीजेपी ऐसा करती है तो इतने पागल लोग तो नहीं होंगे मुख्यमंत्री नीतीश कुमार जी।
लेकिन कौशिक जी, जब जेपी नड्डा, जब आपके पार्टी के अध्यक्ष कहते हैं कि इन पॉलिटिक्स में फिर बीजेपी ही, मतलब ओनली बीजेपी विल रिमेन और जो बाकी पार्टियां हैं वो खत्म हो जाएंगी, तो फिर आप क्या, मतलब उनका कहने का क्या मतलब है? जो आपके पार्टनर्स हैं, रीजनल पार्टीज हैं, छोटी पार्टीज हैं, हाउ शुड दे टेक इट?
रीजनल पार्टी, देखिए रीजनल पार्टी को जो टाइम है ना, वो मुझे लगता है आने वाले टाइम में नहीं रहेगा। ये तो ये देश भी जानता है। पहले भी हम लोग
आपने तो कंफर्म कर लिया, आपने तो स्पिन भी कर दिया।
यू आर डबलिंग डाउन ऑन दिस।
ये लोग राजनीति ऐसी करते हैं। ये देखिए, ये तो हमारा शुरू से ही ये चीज रही है। अब किसी प्रदेश को उठा के देख लीजिए, रीजनल पार्टी अपने आप खत्म होती जाती है। हमारा एग्जाम्पल उठा के देखेंगे तो हरियाणा के अंदर बंसीलाल जी ने पार्टी बनाई, वो खत्म हुए। उनके बाद रतनलाल जी के लड़के ने पार्टी बनाई, वो खत्म हुए। चौधरी देवीलाल जी ने पार्टी बनाई, वो खत्म हुए। तो जो इस तरह की आप किसी भी स्टेट का उठा के देख लीजिए, रीजनल पार्टियों का फ्यूचर कोई ज्यादा लंबा नहीं होता। वो लोग अपने हित की सोचते हैं।
सर, आप क्या बात कर रहे हैं? भारत के कितने प्रदेश हैं जहां रीजनल पार्टीज की सरकारें चल रही हैं? जहां बिहार की बात हो रही है वहां रीजनल पार्टी चल रही है, तमिलनाडु में चल रही है, वेस्ट बंगाल में चल रही है, आंध्रा में चल रही है, तेलंगाना में चल रही है। कहां रीजनल पार्टियां नहीं चल रही?
सर वेट कीजिएगा, मैं बता रहा हूँ देश की जनता भी इन सब चीजों से ऊपर आ रही है। मुझे लगता है भारतीय जनता पार्टी का जो सहयोग देश के लिए रहेगा बहुत लंबा रहने वाला है। तो अभी
वैसे I applaud you for your honesty, Kaushik ji, because at least you're not trying to say
कि उन्होंने गलत बोला,
कॉन्टेक्स्ट ये है वो है। आप साफ कह रहे हैं कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी सारी पार्टीज को खत्म करना चाहती है। वेरी गुड, आपने
हम नहीं खत्म करना चाह रहे, देश के लोग नहीं चाहते इन लोगों को।
अच्छा, देश के लोग खत्म करना चाहते हैं, ठीक है, बिल्कुल। वी हैव टू टेक अ ब्रेक ऑन दैट इंटरेस्टिंग नोट, but we will be back in just a couple of minutes because there is going to be a march to Raj Bhavan that will begin shortly with Nitish Kumar and Tejashwi Yadav and other leaders of this new Mahagathbandhan. This is a photo, in fact, Vasu, from outside Lalu Prasad and Tejashwi Yadav's home in Patna.
Right.
I can't see what's going on there.
I think it's already some kind of makeshift victory rath that has started to move towards Raj Bhavan, or we don't know where, but
somewhere.
I think that's what it is. It's going somewhere where we don't know.
We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Come back. Live pictures there from Bihar, where it appears that Nitish Kumar has begun his almost in a sense padyatra to Raj Bhavan, perhaps accompanied by his supporters, and there Tejashwi Yadav as well. So that, Nidhi, in a sense is the image of the day. Tejashwi and Nitish Kumar marching to Raj Bhavan.
That's right, Vasu. This is the march that they had planned, the march to Raj Bhavan after Nitish Kumar submitted his resignation. So they've decided to march. It's not a very long distance, but this is a sort of a show of strength, a show of unity that they're putting on very publicly right after leaving Raj Bhavan. In fact, these are lovely still pictures that have come. Very clearly, you see Tejashwi Yadav there and Nitish Kumar. They're leading that march and coming out together.
And also Tej Pratap, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Tejashwi's
so
brother.
Basically, he just drove straight to straight out of Raj Bhavan, and short while later reached the residence of Tejashwi Yadav, and has been there for the last few minutes, and they have now left for that march. So we're not clear on what time they're supposed to meet the governor again to stake claim, but I'm guessing it must be
right now.
Sometime today. It depends on how long this march is going to take. A few minutes, an hour, we don't know yet.
Well, as you pointed out, given the short distance between Nitish Kumar's residence and in fact the residence of all these VIPs in Ane Marg up to Raj Bhavan, extremely short distance, it's quite likely that they may well be already at Raj Bhavan and very soon likely to meet the governor. So this has turned out to be a kind of a sort of almost a political symbolism of this march, that this is now the new formation, this is now going to be the new Gathbandhan in Bihar, and to in a sense also present to the public and the governor that they have the numbers and that they should now be allowed to form the MGB 2.0 Sarkar, Nidhi.
Right, absolutely, exactly. The sort of the show of strength that we were talking about. A lot of still pictures now coming out from the meeting in the residence as well. If we could show those of I think both sides exchanging flowers, and so yeah, there they are. You can see there. Yeah, it's in a sense a total political reversal by Nitish Kumar. This is the alliance that you know. He was a part of till he walked out of it earlier to join the BJP, leaving the RJD stunned at that point, and then formed this sort of uneasy coalition with the BJP at the time, and now has walked out on the BJP to go back to the RJD. So you can see there. Alok Pandey also joining us now from where this march is happening. Alok, tell us what's going on and how long. I mean, will they be at Raj Bhavan in a matter of minutes?
I'm a little ahead of Lalu Yadav's house, about 100 to 200 meters away from here. But to that side, there are a lot of supporters with RJD flags, etc. Nitish Kumar was inside at least till 2 minutes ago. And those images that you see of him and Tejashwi, at least the still images, are I think from inside Lalu Yadav's house. Because I've been inside that house, and that's where he was also felicitated, Nitish Kumar. I am not able to say if they have exited the gate and are already on their way to the Raj Bhavan, or if those are again visuals also from inside Lalu Yadav's house, because it's a large house, it's an expansive house with a lot of open areas also. But I mean, in any way, they're going to do that if they have not started already, because that is the plan. It appears that both of them will go together along with their MLAs to stake claim to form the government. And now all sides of this road where I am are choked with cars, a lot of cars and supporters and MLAs coming here. And all of them are now, of course, going to Lalu Yadav's home, or at least standing outside the main gate. So I see a lot of RJD flags, I see a lot of JDU flags, at least on the cars. So all of that has started. Some good business has also started. So, you know, some bhel puri walas, some ganna walas, ganna juice walas, they're all here also. So I think we're all expecting that the atmosphere will be a little more festive in the next some time. And of course, the important political event or administrative event, so to say, will be that Nitish Kumar and Tejashwi Yadav will meet the governor together and will stake claim to form Bihar's next government.
Right. I think, Nidhi, also what's interesting to see is the body language. If you look at these pictures and you look at the images, I think what is sought to be conveyed is the fact that all is hunky-dory now, with these friends turned frenemies, turned enemies, turned friends again, because this was the reason, in fact, why Nitish walked out in 2017. It was Lalu ke ladke. That was the ostensible reason given, that he was fed up of this constant kind of pressure and the interference and even likely financial malfeasance by the Lalu Parivar. But now if you see the pictures, you see the bonhomie, you see they're all smiles, indicating or trying to put up the appearance that they are now one happy Parivar.
Absolutely, and you know, very telling. When we have nothing to talk about, we do talk about body language. That's like the best.
You're not supposed to give that away.
Thing to say on TV, but you're right. And clearly, as we've been saying, this bonhomie has been building up for some time. You know, it began with an iftar party a few months ago in May. I think it was late April, early May. You know, when Nitish Kumar just walked across the road and, you know, went to Tejashwi's house and attended this iftar, and everyone was like, oh wow, you know, he's gone there, something's up. And I think that's when the buzz really began that something was up. When Tejashwi went to attend an iftar party of the JDU, the chief minister walked him out and personally saw him off and waved him goodbye, which is something he doesn't do with anyone. So that was again something that was noted and was, you know, taken note of. They've not been attacking each other on public issues at all. For months now, Vasu, they've not, you know, you've not seen the RJD really going hammer and tongs against the government. You've not seen Nitish Kumar saying anything about Tejashwi. There's a new corruption case that was registered against Lalu Yadav and his family recently, but the JDU was told to keep quiet and not to comment on it. And that was something, again, that was very stark. The media took note of it, that the JDU is not saying anything.
Well, so, that is, in fact, you know, Nidhi, that's a good point, because that's the interesting thing. In 2017, that Nitish walks out of the alliance citing corruption as a factor, that he is running on an anti-corruption plank and the RJD alliance was becoming a problem. And now he's allied with the RJD at a time when even more cases have been foisted on the RJD and its leadership. So just look at how the wheel has come full circle.
Yeah.
So let's also, Nidhi, I think go back to panel. Sanjay Jha is there, Kuntal of the Congress, Zainab Sikandar, all of them joining us. Kuntal, explain that. I mean, you know, on one hand, Nitish says he's against corruption, that's why he walked out of the RJD alliance. Now, he's back with the RJD. RJD faces even more charges of corruption.
See, Nitish Kumar is still leading this coalition. Let me tell you very clearly. Nitish Kumar is still leading this coalition, and he is going to ensure that Bihar has got Bihar is going to be governed by a government which is pro-development.
Okay, sorry, Colonel, I'm just cutting you off for a second. The BJP is holding its first press conference in Bihar. Let's listen and we'll come back to you.
माननीय प्रेम रंजन पटेल जी और सभी प्रेस के मित्रों, 2020 के चुनाव में एनडीए गठबंधन के तहत हम सबों ने चुनाव लड़ा था और जो मेजॉरिटी और मैंडेट था वह एनडीए में भाजपा और जनता दल यूनाइटेड को जनता ने मैंडेट दिया था। हम 74 सीट जीतने में कामयाब हुए थे। उसके बावजूद भी माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने और माननीय गृह मंत्री जी ने जो वादा किया था, हमने उस वादे का पूर्णतः पालन किया और माननीय नीतीश कुमार जी इस एनडीए गठबंधन के मुख्यमंत्री बने। आज जो कुछ भी हुआ है वह बिहार की जनता के साथ और भाजपा के साथ धोखा है। यह पूरे उस मैंडेट का उल्लंघन है जो मैंडेट बिहार की जनता ने दिया था, जिसके एक 2005 के पहले की जो सरकार थी उसके विरुद्ध का मैंडेट था कि यह प्रदेश शांति चाहता है, यह प्रदेश विकास चाहता है। और जो कुछ भी आज हुआ है वह न केवल भाजपा बल्कि बिहार की सारी जनता के साथ धोखा है और बिहार की जनता इसको कतई बर्दाश्त नहीं करेगी। धन्यवाद। यह वह बेहतर जवाब दे सकता है। जो कुछ भी हुआ है उसका बेहतर जवाब माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी दे सकते हैं। यह सरासर बिहार के जनता और मैंडेट के साथ धोखा है और 2017 की जो परिस्थितियां बनी थी वह खुद वो बताएं कि उस भ्रष्टाचार में क्या अंतर आ गया, उस बातों में क्या अंतर आ गया। यह इस बिहार की जनता के साथ मैंडेट के साथ धोखा है और बिहार की जनता निश्चित तौर पर इसके लिए उनको सबक सिखाएंगे।
पार्टी को तोड़ने की साजिश नीतीश कुमार से बात करने की पार्टी को उन्होंने कहा कि मेरी पार्टी को तोड़ने की साजिश चल रही है।
2017 का उनका बयान देखिए, क्या एक शब्द भी उससे अलग है क्या?
धन्यवाद।
Which says that Nitish Kumar is going to be will pay the price for this. It's the first, sort of Vasu, the first sort of serious comment we've seen on these developments, and I think this is going to be the point on which they will attack him, that he had walked out of the alliance with the RJD earlier on the issue of corruption. What has changed between then in 2017 and now in 2022 when he has embraced the same RJD, which, by the way, as I said earlier, has just seen a fresh case registered against Lalu's family.
Exactly. That's the point we were just making actually before this briefing by the BJP. And let's just go back once again to Kuntal Krishna. To Kuntal Krishna, sorry we interrupted you, if you want to respond to that, this allegation that what happens to Nitish's supposed anti-corruption plank if he is allying once again with the RJD?
Srini, Nitish ji is going to ensure that law will take its own course, law will take its own action, and anyone found guilty in any kind of corruption, he will be treated as law of the land says. But now...
But the fact that the RJD is facing so many corruption cases, Lalu himself has been convicted in some of them.
Srini, I told you, Nitish Kumar always stood by the law of the land, and even this time when there is going to be a UPA government in Bihar, we are going to ensure that there is a free and fair trial for everything. If anyone is found guilty of anything, law of land will take its own course. But right now in country there is a bigger threat. Democracy is under siege. So this is one of the very big questions which has persuaded Nitish Kumar to stand with the people who are fighting to save democracy in this country.
Yes, but I think the JDU will break its silence also, Vasu, and we should have them on. But Sanjay Jha, will it not be difficult, for Nitish to defend this, that, on this whole issue of corruption, that he has sort of tried to project this image of being Mr. Clean, walked out of an alliance earlier, now he goes back and embraces the same party? Sanjay, you're on mute. Shockingly. Never happens with you.
Sorry about that. First and foremost, Nidhi, we need to expose how duplicitous the BJP can be. I just heard their spokesperson in Bihar saying that the public mandate ka apman hua hai. But what happened in 2017? The Bihar Governor had been given 177 seats in the 2015 assembly elections in Bihar. So the BJP is in a way being paid back in its own coin, and it has got a lot to do with the current political environment that we have. But to answer your question on corruption, now let me tell you, just like you keep hearing in the Uttar Pradesh elections, Gunda Raj of the Samajwadi Party. It's a failure of the Samajwadi Party to be able to still stick with that and not be able to prove that there is also a jungle Raj courtesy Adityanath. But that's their political failure. Out here where the corruption charges are concerned, I think a lot of people in India are now wakening up to the reality that the political vindictive culture or the vendetta culture has gone so insane under Mr. Modi's government that now anybody can be accused of any malfeasance and then they are stuck. They are maligned, they're completely destroyed in terms of their reputation, and they will be branded as Bhrashtachar for the rest of their lives. I can tell you from my experience in the Congress, every time the BJP came for a TV debate, they would say 2G, coal and whatnot, and the Congress had no ability to defend itself because, it was just weak in its entire posture. So I think if in 5 years, if none of the other members of the Yadav family have gone to jail, then I do think we need to treat all these allegations with a degree of, I wouldn't say be frivolous about it, but we need to be a little skeptical as well. A lot of these charges are politically motivated. And end of day, I think the government of the BJP, whether in the center or in states or as a political party, they successfully use a very powerful propaganda machine to malign everybody in the opposition as corrupt. I'm not trying to defend Partha Chatterjee. I'm not trying to defend anybody corrupt. But the BJP gets away with, daylight murder in my opinion.
Okay, DP Kaushik जी ये बताइए कि ये जो कहा जा रहा है कि अगर आप कह रहे हैं जैसे अभी भाजपा के अपने वरिष्ठ नेता को देखा, उन्होंने कहा संजय जायसवाल जी जो स्टेट प्रेसिडेंट है कि ये तो बहुत बड़ा धोखा हो गया हमारे साथ या बिहार की जनता के साथ, तो जैसे कांग्रेस के वो प्रवक्ता कह रहे हैं कि आपने भी तो धोखा किया 2017 में जब महागठबंधन का मैंडेट था और आपने नीतीश जी के साथ हाथ मिला के सरकार बना दिया, तो वो धोखा नहीं हुआ? अच्छा चलिए, DP, we've lost the line to DP Kaushik. We'll just come back to him in just a second. But just coming to you, Zainab Sikandar, that is this, there's the same question that Nitish may have managed to get the political advantage here of being able to form a government, but this moral question of tying up with the RJD despite this legacy of corruption, will that haunt him?
Yes, in my opinion, I think Nitish Kumar is at a disadvantage. I think after this, I would literally say this is probably the last nail in his career, coffin in terms of, I don't think now he'll be at an advantage in the next assembly election. It will be advantage RJD and BJP. So he has made RJD the more moral party in the eyes of at least the public, because now people will believe more in Tejashwi. Tejashwi has stood by whatever he had. He never joined hands with BJP. It is Nitish who's always played this ping pong game of sometimes going to BJP, sometimes going to RJD, and never really ideologically having a strong foothold. So in my opinion, it's disadvantage JDU. RJD in the next assembly election, in my opinion, it will be a face-to-face between BJP and RJD, because Nitish Kumar basically has no strong foundation on which he plays his politics out. At one point he says, I'm secular, then he joins with the BJP.
Right. Sanjay, you wanted to come in on that. Do you agree with Zainab there? I fear that writing political obituaries in this country is a very risky thing to do. But how would this be playing out in Bihar? I just wonder what voters think of all of this. All the flip-flops.
Nidhi,
and by the way, it's the 8th time Nitish Kumar will take oath as Chief Minister since 2000. As Manish Kumar just messaged me, he's been taking oath since 2000.
But let me, Nidhi, respond to what Zainab said. I'll tell you why I don't agree with her. If corruption indictment of Lalu Yadav was such a big issue, RJD would not have been the single largest party in the Bihar assembly. I think you got to look at the popular mandate, for heaven's sake. The Bihar voters, the RJD got 23% of the votes. That's not a small number in a very fractured polity. And they got 75. They're the largest party in the Bihar assembly. You see, the BJP or all opposition parties indulge in this rhetoric. We'll go after the BJP with certain standard, kind of template. They come after you with a template. The important thing is to look at what are the public saying? The public is not accepting this corruption issue at all. I mean, even where Gunda Raj issue is concerned, Samajwadi Party is the second largest party in Uttar Pradesh. You can't write it off yet. So I think, we need to kind of be a little more nuanced about accepting the fact that just because Nitish is today tied up with RJD, it is tainting his image. He is in fact aligning with the single largest party in the assembly.
ओके डीपी कौशिक जी, आप आ गए हमारे साथ, दोबारा जुड़ गए हैं।
जी सर।
नहीं, मैं आपसे ये पूछा था कि जो धोखे की बात कर रहे थे, बीजेपी के नेता भी आए थे, प्रदेश अध्यक्ष, तो यही सवाल बीजेपी भी पूछा जा रहा है कि जब 2017 में आपने नीतीश जी के साथ सरकार बनाया, जब चुनाव आप हार गए थे 2015 का चुनाव, तो क्या वो धोखा नहीं था? और ये उसी का एक तरह से वो नहीं है, यू टर्न या काल चक्र जिसे कहते हैं?
देखिए, मैंने पहले भी कहा, एक तो प्रदेश की जनता के साथ धोखा है, दूसरा हमारे साथ धोखा इसलिए हम लोग कह रहे हैं कि हमारी इनसे कहीं ज्यादा सीटें होने के बावजूद भी हमें इनको मुख्यमंत्री बनाया।
नहीं 2017 नहीं, तो अगर ये धोखा है तो 2017 भी क्या प्रदेश की जनता के साथ धोखा था?
सर देखिए, हम तो इस धोखों का एक्सेप्ट कर रहे हैं, पर प्रदेश की जनता क्या करेगी? उनको क्यों धोखा दिया जा रहा है? हमें तो चलो, हमने मान लिया बीजेपी का, तो इन लोगों के जो आजकल रीजनल पार्टियां हर जगह मैं देख रहा हूँ, जैसे आते हैं इलेक्शन नजदीक आते हैं, ये जो रीजनल पार्टी का ऐसा ही होता है। बट हम ये कह रहे हैं कि हमें धोखा इसलिए कि प्रदेश की जनता को अभी ऐसे उसमें डालने की जरूरत कहाँ थी? हमारे से क्या शिकायत थी इनको, माननीय नीतीश जी को, जो कि सडनली इन्होंने ऐसा एक डिसीजन लिया? ये प्रदेश की जनता जना पूछेगी नीतीश जी से।
2017 में भी तो जनता ने पूछा होगा कि क्या हो गया उनको, तब भी तो उन्होंने तोड़ दी सरकार, अलायंस तोड़ दी ना, आपके साथ गए।
नहीं, सर्कमस्टांसेस ऐसे हो जाते हैं कई बार। नहीं, मैं कई बार सर्कमस्टांसेस ऐसे आते हैं 2017 और अब तो 2022 में चल रहे हैं ना मैम हम।
हाँ जी, तो वो भी कहेंगे अभी भी सर्कमस्टांसेस हैं, आप लोग मेरी पार्टी को तोड़ना चाह रहे थे।
नहीं, हमें क्यों तोड़ेंगे इनकी पार्टी को? हमें तोड़ना होता तो हम पहले ही ऐसा इनके साथ ही मना ही कर देते, और हमारा कल्चर ही नहीं है पार्टी तोड़ने का इनका।
ठीक है,
ये तो
अगेंस्ट स्पॉन्टेनियस लाफ्टर।
ये तो पहले कह रहे हैं ना, ये खुद इनकी सोच हो सकती है, बीजेपी की सोच नहीं है ना ये
जी।
हम तो अपने अलायंस को हमेशा साथ रखते हैं। मान लीजिए अटल जी के टाइम से देखिए एनडीए कितना बड़ा घटक दल होता था।
हम आज भी डीपी जी ये बताइए, सीरियस नोट पे आप कह रहे हैं कि बीजेपी अपने सब अलायंस को साथ रखती है, आप देखिए कि आपके सारे अलायंस पार्टनर आपको छोड़ के चले गए। अकाली दल चली गई, शिवसेना चले गया, अब नीतीश छोड़ के चले गए। ये क्या मायने रखता है बीजेपी का?
टीडीपी चली गई थी सबसे पहले।
मैं समझता हूँ सर, हमारे हरियाणा में एक कहावत है जिसे कहते हैं राजपूत। राज के पूत जो होते हैं ना, मुझे लगता है ये छोटी पार्टियां है ना, उस कल्चर पर चलते हैं। इनको राज चाहिए हमेशा के लिए, राज, और राज हमने इनको दिया हुआ था, फिर भी पता नहीं नीतीश जी को क्या सोच में लगी है। तो मुझे तो इस तरह की पार्टियों से बड़ी नफरत है जो इस देश को अगर खुदा न खास्ता अगर ये चुनाव हो जाते तो प्रदेश की जनता पे कितना वजन पड़ता। तो ये रीजनल पार्टी को थोड़ा सोचना पड़ेगा। इसलिए हम कह रहे हैं कि माननीय मोदी जी का साथ देश को चाहिए भी, और माननीय मोदी जी को लंबे समय के लिए प्रधानमंत्री देखना हमारा बहुत जरूरी है, जिससे देश की प्रगति की तरफ हम लोग और आगे बढ़ेंगे।
Why are you smiling, Sanjay Jha? He's being honest. Mr. Kaushik is actually reflecting what the party president said the other day, which is what has also angered Nitish. So he's being honest in doubling down on that.
Yeah, and I'm pretty astonished that he used words like nafrat. You see, this is what I called, Nidhi as the political hubris of the BJP. I experience it when I meet them on TV shows. When I meet some of them, in fact, face to face, they are not so arrogant, perhaps. But the party generally believes that it cannot lose. When Amit Shah made that hyperbole that the BJP is going to be here for 50 years, a lot of regular people sniggered that this is the typical, bombastic nonsense. But I can tell you the bhakts, the social media trolls, and Mr. Kaushik's, they believe that the BJP cannot lose. And therefore, in my opinion, today Nitish Kumar pulling the rug under the BJP is a very significant exhibition of the fact that the BJP needs to be beaten at their own game. I think political parties need to play better politics to defeat the BJP. I think otherwise they believe they can railroad anybody they want. The constitution, democracy in the opposition parties. In Maharashtra, since I live here, I can tell you what has happened, in my opinion, is an epic, shall we say, slaughter of democracy.
Epic slaughter of democracy is how you're describing it. So just to bring everybody up to speed on what's actually happening, we're seeing pictures. Let's just go full frame to those of this march that is happening in Patna at the moment, led by Nitish Kumar and Tejashwi Yadav. They're marching towards Raj Bhavan to the governor's house. A show of strength really that has come after Nitish Kumar submitted his resignation to the governor just a little over an hour ago. Then there was some kind of function, as Vasu we were discussing. We have still pictures at Rabdi Devi's residence, at Tejashwi's residence, some sort of meeting of legislators, etc. And then they, of course, have started this march. Shouldn't be too long, but this is when they will now stake claim to form the government. Vasu.
That's right. In fact, let's listen to the march. Let's listen to some of the sounds and the sights from the ground in Patna, so we get a feel of this new political Gathbandhan taking shape once again.